Hey there, everyone. Hey there, everyone. This is NJ Evans and the evening drive home. How are you? I am not trying, but I'm being distracted a little bit because I have a little scenario going on here with my laptop, which I know is going to just end itself in a few minutes. What I want to do is definitely come and speak with you a little bit about some of the things that I was sharing with you previously. I'm known as a podcaster, but I'm also known as a broadcast journalist. That's what I did for over 45 years. And I had a lot of fun with it too. The opportunity of meeting individuals and sharing insights and information. And what I wanted to share with you are some of the things that I've learned actually in the trenches while I was doing these interviews. And one of them, and some of them are in terms of how do you interview somebody? So, did anyone ever show you or tell you how to interview? I know when I was growing up, that wasn't the case. However, the flip side of that is the people that surrounded myself and my brothers, they made sure, my family members made sure that we had certain characteristics that we were able to use when we came over into the work world. It was transferable skills. And that's what I want to show you. You have transferable skills. You might not know exactly in depth what is going on in that particular industry, but now that's predicated upon you to decide that you're going to go ahead and learn whatever that particular industry is that you want to venture into. Case in point, as I've mentioned many times, I love cybersecurity, and I don't mean that as a romantic affair. I mean that as I just find it fascinating to me. I have no idea why. I also find it's rather fascinating how we have so many scams and things like that going on, but that's a whole nother subject matter, and that's not what this is about. I was just saying people have different things that they're interested in, and when you're interested in something, you focus in and you learn it to the best of your ability. So, you podcasters, and I've watched a few of you on YouTube, and I would say, pretty good, pretty good. And some of you, I would say, you're still feeling a little uncomfortable, and you can tell by the way you look or not looking into your camera, or even if the camera's off, you can hear it in the voice. So, let's begin a little bit at the beginning. Number one, there's a real big shortage happening right now in the workforce. And that shortage is really going to start causing a lot of challenges for a lot of different people. And there's a thing which they call the working poor. Okay. Now, when they say working poor, they're talking about men and women. All right. Working full time jobs. And some of them are high school grads, and some of them have some college. And yet they're being classified as part of the working poor. How is that possible? They don't have the income that you would think that they would have. And if you ever did some research, the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics is a great place to go for anything concerning employment and concerning education and things like that. So, people, this is a quote for people who completed more years of education usually have greater access to higher paying job. At least that's the premise, right? So, these people are usually management professionals and related occupations. Well, they're less likely to live in poverty, so some say. Okay. Among people in the labor force for 27 weeks, that's all they're looking at is 27 weeks or more in 2022, with less than a high school diploma, had the highest working poor rate at 12.6%, 9 times higher than the rate of those with a bachelor's degree or higher. Okay. Okay. So what does that really mean? Then, well, let's look a little bit further. Women were more likely than men to be among the working poor, both for high school graduates as well as for some college and associate degrees. The working poor rates were a little different for men and women with a bachelor degree and higher at 1.3% and 1.5%. And for men and women with less than a high school diploma, for those who think they don't need to go to high school, that game has changed. All right. So you have 11.7% and 14.2%, respectively. So for those with a bachelor degree or higher, all races, ethnicities, check this out: 1.3%, whites, 2.0% blacks, 1.6% Asians, and 2.3% Hispanics. But for all races and ethnicities, working poor, no matter how many jobs you have, you're still going to come up under the poverty level. We're much higher than those with less than a high school diploma. So, white category, 12.6%, blacks, 15.0%, Asians, 8.7%, and Hispanics, 14.7%. Now, that was before we had the visitors, meaning all the immigrants that are now here now. And we can't blame that there's no jobs on the immigrants. We can't blame it on them. There's other things and factors that are happening here besides that. But what I wanted you to do is take a look at something. I want you to take a look at those candidates that have thrown their hats and gloves into the rings for the presidential election. Now, another aspect of my background, television, radio production, that also means videos and things like that. And I did directing and producing. So I'm looking at some of the commercials, you could say, and I can see cutaways and things like that, things that don't really, continuity is not really there for some of the items. But what I want you to look at is turn the volume down and just listen to everybody speak. Excuse me, turn the volume down and watch everybody speaking. Watch the hand movements. Do they look comfortable? Are they trying to say something with their body language? Not say something with their body language? Head movements. What are you feeling from them? Do they feel comfortable? I mean, do they feel assertive? Do they feel like, oh, I definitely am going to run outside and go vote for that person. When it's time for me to go through that election period, I will definitely vote for whomever it is that I'm looking at. Is that the feeling that you get when you look at those candidates? And I'm not saying this from a cynical perspective. I'm just saying this, period. What do you feel when you're looking at them? Because when you are on the air and somebody's listening to your voice or watching your video, that's the same thing that's happening. They're picking up, what do they feel from you? Are you a good person? You're a bad person? You're an indifferent person? Are you an arrogant person? Are you a narcissist? What are you? Who are you? Because it's going to come across real clearly. No matter how we do this, it's going to come across real clearly. I wanted you to pay attention to that as part of just a little lesson, an exercise. And I'm going to bring this all the way back to the beginning. I was working at ABC in California many, many, many years ago, and I was a floor director. So those are the people that are in the newsroom and they stand next to the camera and they motion to everybody. They cue them, let them know when they are going to get ready to speak and blah, 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 blah. Anyhow, that's not the job I applied for. That was the job they gave me. I was supposed to be a director. But anyhow, back to the story. So, on a number of occasions, I noticed that a few of the reporters were very uncomfortable with being in front of the camera. So, when we would go to a minor break, for a commercial break or something like that, I would talk to the various reporters and ask them, well, how long have you been doing this? And when I found out that they were brand new, spank new, this was the first time they were in front of the cameras, and I would tell them to just watch me. And I'd go stand next to the camera and I would guide them and just smile and let them smile back. And I told them, I said, just speak to me. I said, don't try and speak to anyone else. I mean, this is my cat that is talking to us at this time. Just speak to me. And they got it. And they got it. And they started becoming more comfortable. And that's what I'm saying to you. The more you do this, the more comfortable you will become. As far as your shows are concerned, if you have a particular niche that you're in, research it. Research it really well. Know it so that you can become the expert and you go from there. I never thought that there were many people who didn't understand how to interview until I started watching people. And they really didn't understand how to interview and they never was shown how to interview. And yet we expect them to go on an interview and ace it. Go on an interview and be very successful at that whatever position they're applying for. If you've never done it before, how can you do that? If no one has ever shared with you What are the pluses and the minuses? What do you need to do? How do you hold your head? How do you hold your hand? You know, I mean, there are so many things. Do you have questions at the end of the interview when the person that is interviewing you says, "Well, do you have any questions for me?" Do you sit there and say, "No, that's okay, I'm out of here"? Or do you say, "Okay, well, I would like to know a little bit more about X, Y, and Z"? Whatever your position is that you're applying for, claim it if that's what you really want to do. Because during the time that you're being interviewed, you can interview the company and decide whether or not you like the company. Hence, the reason why I was saying pay attention to the candidates, interview them in your own mind, and see whether or not you really like what they're saying and what they're offering, what they're bringing to the table for your group. And not only them, the ones for the presidential election, I'm talking about your local people as well, your local politicians, your state representatives. All of them are running. Everybody, the feds, everybody's running at this particular point in time. Take a look, see what you like, see what you don't like. If you could change it, what would you change? You understand? And then it'll be your turn. Because once you have that microphone in your hand, you can ask the questions. Always be respectful. Never cut anybody off. Never be negative. If you have some very juicy, juicy, bad information about somebody, do not share it. If you think somebody did something, you say allegedly. Do not go out there as if you know. The information that I had cited a few minutes ago, that was all from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So, without any further ado, I will speak with you again, and I hope that some of this was able to resonate with you. I met some women, a short story. I was a hmm, program coordinator many, many moons ago in California, and my women were women that were not in your traditional jobs. So they were in non traditional positions, and I had to prepare them for interviews. But the funny thing about it is, I had women that were 45 years old and above, and they were applying for these positions, and a lot of them didn't have math skills. And because it was a non traditional job, they needed the math skills. So they were a little nervous about that. But you see, the way the organization had positioned that whole program, math skills were not going to be a number one issue. It was just going to be presentation, how they presented themselves, and were they interested and willing to learn what they had to do. But it surprised me when women were sitting there at 45 years old and didn't finish the third grade or the fourth grade. That's kind of surprised me. That was my introduction to this. And I found myself working very diligently because I've had a media background since I was 20 years old. So I've always watched all of this kind of stuff. And now I knew how to share it with other people. And you're always interviewing. When you walk down the street, you're always interviewing. Your next door neighbor is watching you when you think you're not being watched. And I don't mean that from a cynical perspective. I mean that it's just a simple case of knowing who your neighbors are. That's it. But not, let me tell this person that you're over here. No, not from that perspective. That's a little too much. But you're always being watched. So you try and put your best foot forward. And a lot of families from the South and from out of the country, they do that. They always tell you, put your best foot forward, represent me and represent me well. And I say that to you at this point in time. If you're going into this media, don't let it rule you. Always remember you are your own person. Be respectful and carry yourself so that your mother and father would be proud of you at all points in time. My name is NJ Evans. This is the evening drive home. And I hope that you're able to subtract or find some kernels of good or beautiful pearls out of this conversation that I'm having with you this evening, because I really wanted you to know that you have it if you desire, you want it, but you have to be able to work for it. And the closer we get to 2025, the more intense it's going to become. But you can rise above it if you believe. in yourself. So remember to create the reality that you truly do desire and not one that you don't. Wishing you a lot of love and light and protection and guidance. And also saying to you, once again, watch what you focus on. Watch what you focus on. Your thoughts create your reality. Create something beautiful for you and your family. Until next time, ciao.